never identified as the alt-right. The press seems determined to crown me the queen of it. All I've done is give them a fair hearing in the press. I think that white identity and white nationalism is a little misleading. I think it's more accurate to say that the alt-right cares about Western supremacy rather than white supremacy. It cares about Western values. It cares about liberal, capitalist, Western democracy, democratic values, freedom, equality, that kind of thing. And it sees, various threats to those on various fronts.
So when Donald Trump talks about preventing immigrants, preventing Muslims from coming into the country, a lot of people see that as racist. You don't think that's racist?
They're entitled to, but all I can tell you is, as a gay man, I'm quite reassured by Donald Trump's, entreaties toward American values and his skepticism about Islamic immigration. When Hillary Clinton quotes my headlines, and suggests that this is some kind of sinister, dark underbelly of American society.
What do you mean by American values?
Well, First and Second Amendment, freedom of speech, free expression, the right to be, do, and say whatever you want. These are the values that have made America the greatest country in the history of human civilization. These are values that are not compatible with some of the Islamic immigration that we see in Europe. And, I guess I'm over here as a warning from Europe saying, please don't go the same way as Germany and the UK.
If you are, or if you're not part of the described alt-right, do you, as a gay man, feel comfortable in it? That the people who embrace other elements of what we've just described as the alt-right. You know what I'm driving.
Yeah, I understand the question.
Do you feel comfortable in it?
The press seems determined to label the alt-right this misogynist, hateful, racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic movement, and yet at the same time tries to crown, a gay Jew who never shuts up about his black boyfriends as the leader of it. Something isn't quite right
Can
here.
you concede that the alt-right actually attracts those groups of people?
I think there's some overlap on the very, very fringes. And I wrote a very good guide to the alt-right for anyone who's really interested in this. I think it's the only, and I say it's very good, but I think it's the only example in journalism, really so far, of somebody trying to give an accurate and fair guide to the contours of the movement rather than virtue signaling by saying, oh, racism is bad. Yeah, we know that. I want to know what this movement actually consists of. And so I wrote an establishment.
So in the last few days, the hot conversation online outside of Trump's hourly attempts at a coup, at finishing his coup in the United States, is the speech that Milo Yiannopoulos was supposed to give at UC Berkeley. And the grim specter of anti-fascist violence. Those naughty, naughty anti-fascists and their use of violence to silence their enemies, who just happen to be espousing a philosophy of annihilation and genocide. I'll do a separate video on the diversity of thought within anti-fascism, modern anti-fascism. What I will comment on very briefly is freedom of speech and intimidation, counter-speech, harassment. So, Milo is known on YouTube for owning people. In internet culture, this idea of shutting down someone else's ideas. Milo is a hero amongst his people for shutting down feminists, shutting down Black Lives Matter activists, shutting down people who preach multiculturalism and inclusion for Muslims. It's not like the guy is Mr. Courtesy who gives all of this liberal tolerance to his critics and to people who he disagrees with. It's completely absurd. The guy goes from 0 to fuck you in 30 seconds flat. His whole thing is he gives you maybe 20 seconds to ask a question, and then he starts talking over you. And then he posts a video about how he owned you, how his ideas beat your ideas. So this whole virtue signaling from whatever faction of the alt-right that Milo identifies with, now that Richard Spencer and Baked Alaska have disavowed his gay Jewish ass from their white nationalist movement. You know what's funny is that two of the biggest defenders of the alt-right on YouTube were Jewish men, Jewish gay men. It fascinates me how you can demonstrate the virtue of your liberal tolerance by supporting people's right to advocate your imprisonment, enslavement, and annihilation. If that's liberal tolerance, I have no interest in sharing a rhetorical space with ideas. For me, the upward limit of free speech is incitement. It's funny that all these free speech liberals are bitching about the protesters rioting, because for me, deliberately inciting a riot is no different from what Milo Yiannopoulos does. He just does it online. He organizes witch hunts online for people he disagrees with. If you want to talk about no platforming, maybe you should talk about all the feminists who have been trolled out of existence in the online space, or at the very least have been challenged to make Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube usable platforms with endless dog piles of toxic sociopaths vomiting their hate for mommy in their comment sections. There are a lot of ways to no platform people, and it's always so funny to me how explicit you have to be in order to get these fucking liberals on your side. So they're on Milo's side because Milo got literally run out on a rail. People showed up with pitchforks and torches to UC Berkeley. And I'm not shocked about that, because the little piece of context that is missing in all these little Twitter arguments about whether or not it's immoral to deplatform Milo Yiannopoulos is the fact that the fucking guy was there to expose students who were undocumented. Basically, like, do a reverse Schindler's List where he outs people to the Gestapo instead of saving them from the ovens. But for, like, mostly Mexican immigrants in the university. And I guess some Muslim immigrants, because he surely does like hitting his Muslims. Maybe he has a list of undocumented feminists. We'll never know, because he didn't get to pull off his demonstration. He didn't get to exercise his maximalist free speech rights. So, in the same week, we land again on this idea of the importance of deplatforming hatred. Sometimes by any means necessary, right? So we're not talking about organizing violence. I don't support that. But sometimes violence happens, especially when these fucking Trumpers and these neo-Nazis show up at your counter-demonstration and troll you consistently because they do want to get punched in the face. They do want to get maced in the face because they want to have this propaganda to show that they are, in fact, God's persecuted children. Don't give them what they want. That's the next liberal argument, right? To push back against is this idea of, well, if they went there to bait you, don't... this funny thing, like all these liberal atheists with this fucking Christian thing of turn the other cheek. If you come to... let's use a very basic... correlative. If someone walked up to a motherfucking hornet's nest with a baseball bat and swung at that hornet's nest, sure, you'd take him to the hospital, but you would have a very valid question about what is wrong with you that you walked up to that hornet's nest with that baseball bat. What were you asking for? And maybe you deserve to get stung in the ass this one time because you swung at a fucking hornet's nest. It was defending itself. Because it was afraid. That's what you don't really understand about which side resorts to violence first. It's fear. I don't think that it's wrong for anti-fascists to express that we are afraid of fascism. I am afraid of someone like Milo Yiannopoulos coming to power. Even though he's not a white nationalist, he certainly is a nationalist. And once you get on that deportation bandwagon, we know where that goes. So he can have sex with all the black men that he wants, but he's going to deport them if they are Muslim and not culturally compatible. So again, I don't believe in sort of a substantial distinction between xenophobia and racism. It all ends the same way. It wasn't just Jews put in the oven during the Holocaust, There were a lot of other marginalized groups. And these things are always deeply related. That's what's so funny about Milo and Rubin supporting a xenophobic movement. Once you start down that slippery slope of hate, you're going to land in the same place. That train's never late, is it? Once you start with the kill Jews, you always then move to kill faggots and kill niggers. And that train's never late, man. It's always on time. If you're part of some hate movement and you're sort of like, well, I'm not on the list. Wait. And they'll keep on narrowing down. I don't think even a year ago that Milo Yiannopoulos would think that he was on Richard Spencer's kill list. But guess what? See, when a white nationalist disavows you, they're not just saying you're out. They're saying when they get power, you go in the oven. So don't be afraid of anti-fascists, Milo, because we're just going to break windows. Be afraid of Richard Spencer because he wants to put you in a pizza oven. That's your real problem.